Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Saturday, July 4th, 2020. Happy 4th of July. So since today is the United States Independence Day, I've decided to go ahead and do a video discussing the 13 imaginary states in the United States, states that wanted to be independent from the U.S. that never ever came to be. So there's actually 13 states on your screen that I can go ahead and choose from. I'll go ahead and run through all of them. 538 gave us this wonderful new type of imaginary state map where we can go ahead and see where these states would have voted in 2016, the electoral count they would have, and take a look at just the overall impact on the general election. So they're doing this with the 2016 map. So essentially they have all of the states that voted for Trump and Hillary Clinton. But now that we have these 13 imaginary electoral college states, we can go ahead and see which ones are which. And I didn't want to cover too much in depth about 2020 politics right now because again, today is 4th of July. It's a national holiday, so I guess I'm going to be taking the day off too, in a sense. So this is the first day. It's called Absaroka. So essentially, it gives us a little bit of a tidbit down here. I'll just read it off really quickly. It was first proposed in 1939 by a group of secessionist ranchers. It comprises portion of South Dakota, Wyoming, and Montana, so very Republican areas. Its population in 2016 would only be 623,000, so I believe that it's more than Wyoming, less than Vermont, and less than D.C. So it would have 3 electoral votes, and it would vote for Donald Trump by a 49-point margin. That'd actually be the largest margin Donald Trump won by in 2016. So that's pretty substantial to say the least. So Absaroka goes to why did I say Joe Biden? Donald Trump in 2016. So I don't know what this button does. I guess it just gives us an idea, but this is where it would be. 3 electoral votes, not too much. So Chicago is another discussion. So that's actually 9 electoral votes, takes a big chunk out of Illinois. Obviously, Illinois from that point on becomes a Republican state because Chicago, much like Northern Virginia and other parts of, big states, main cities in California lead that state in a leftward direction. But Chicago is absolutely the reason why Illinois votes for the Democrats very solidly. And its 9 electoral votes would go to Hillary Clinton. Let's see. So let's go and see. So home to the city of Chicago has been the focus of several quixotic efforts to secede from Illinois or to kick it out of Illinois and become its own state. So let's go ahead and see. What if have a population of 5 million? Wow. So 9 electoral votes nearing Maryland's population. It would have gone solidly for Clinton by a margin of 53%. That's less than D.C., but still very solid margin. And then Illinois would become a red-leaning swing state, voting for Trump by a narrow 6-point margin. So that one definitely could be in play for 2020. But now, considering that this doesn't actually happen, it is a safe Democratic state. So let's move on to Deseret. So this is actually 44 electoral votes. This was proposed in 1949, so I don't think they expected the population to be so large, but a population of almost 32 million people and 44 electoral votes, Hillary Clinton would have won it by a 16-point margin. So that would add on, that would completely desecrate, Utah and its existence, add a little bit to Idaho, a little bit of land, take away a lot from California, but overall give a very large electoral college advantage for Hillary Clinton. That's more than 55 electoral votes altogether, and it would give 6 electoral votes from Arizona to Donald Trump, but he already was winning Arizona in 2016. So Hillary Clinton would have won that by a 16-point margin. Wow, that is a very oddly shaped state. I don't even know if they knew what they were drawing back then. So let's go ahead and move on to the next one. New York City. Wow. So 13 electoral votes from New York take out a big chunk of the 29 in New York State. So looking at the overall electoral college numbers, this would be a very solid Democratic state. 61-point margin for Hillary Clinton in 2016. 13 electoral votes, like I said. This was part of Norman Mailer's. Didn't he write something about... I swear he did because I had an AP Lang prompt about it. But, or maybe, was he the one? No, that wasn't. That was Perrette and Griffin. Whatever. Anyways, I'm sorry. I wrote an essay about something from Norman Mailer back earlier this year. But 1969, New York mayoral platform. So a population of 8.5 million in 2016. Wow, New York City is large. It's larger than a lot of other states, pretty much any state in this entire solid Republican region. I don't think there's a single state throughout this section of the United States. Actually, no. Excluding California, every state on this side of the United States, except for Texas, does not have any more electoral votes than New York City would. And the same can be said for a lot of the South, except for North Carolina, Georgia, and Florida. But that is very interesting to me. So New York City would add, well, not add, but I guess increase Hillary Clinton's numbers by, in this sense, 1 electoral vote. So let's move on to Franklin. Franklin is a region of Tennessee. It declared itself the 14th state in the mid-1780s, never formally recognized, but then moved into North Carolina before moving over back into Tennessee. If it voted in 2016, it would only be 3 electoral votes, so comparable to North and South Dakota and other states. Voted for Trump by 56%, so that's actually very interesting. Again, it would be a very solid state, but in turn would become the most solid GOP state from that point on. Moving on to Jefferson. This is a state that is a part of Northern California and Southern Oregon. It was proposed in 1941, and it has a population of around 500,000 people, so only 3 electoral votes. Trump would have won it by 20 percentage points, which means it's not so much in play, but more so a safe Republican state at that point. It would be the only part of the West Coast, actually, that would be voting Republican. So Jefferson goes to Donald Trump by a pretty substantial margin. So Lincoln, I think I have an understanding of where it is. So it's a part of eastern Washington and Idaho's panhandle, so essentially that top part of Idaho. First proposed in 1865, so right at the end of the Civil War. In 2016, it would have a population of 1.9 million. Wow, so 5 electoral votes. Surprisingly, Washington still remains with 10. Trump would have won it by 20%, so very similar to Jefferson that we just saw over in this region of the United States now, would give Donald Trump votes that would have normally came from Washington or Idaho. Idaho typically has 4. So let's move on to Old Massachusetts. This is interesting. So Old Massachusetts, so essentially, I guess it could be its own state. Let's go ahead and see. It became its own state after 1820s Missouri Compromise, I guess, balancing out slave states and non-slave states. If Maine had never split off on Massachusetts, it would have a population of around 8 million with 13 electoral votes. So right now, Massachusetts has 11, if I'm not mistaken, and Massachusetts has 4. So this will decrease their electoral vote count by 1, but or combined, I guess you could say. But still, it would be voting as a solid block. I don't think they would have proportional electoral college votes in this system, but Massachusetts would absolutely lead the way for Maine to vote. But again, they're not connected, so it'd be very difficult for these two to actually be states. Original Virginia includes West Virginia and regular Virginia. Unfortunately for Northern Virginia, they will no longer lead the state in its leftward direction. West Virginia would completely take over the state of Virginia, and though Trump would only win it by 2%, if in this scenario, if this does reach 2020, I definitely think Biden would win this election just because of the fact that he is outperforming Hillary Clinton. But 16 electoral votes combined altogether. Right now, Virginia has 3. Virginia has 13, not 3, and West Virginia has 5. So they are losing in terms of electoral votes, but I think it is interesting just taking a look at it. 16 electoral votes. Never really thought I could see the Virginias combined again. And based off of what they believe in fundamentally, I think they would be very different states. And they are very different states. So this is the original Virginia. It would have a population of 10 million people. So one of the larger states, larger than Pennsylvania, larger than Michigan, larger than Wisconsin. So a lot of these swing states, new Virginia or old original Virginia, but compared to us would be new, would have a very large number of electoral votes. So this is the territory of Colorado. The PICO Act of 1859 was a proposal to break California at roughly the 36th parallel and name the southern part the Territory of Colorado. It has a population of 24 million people and 34 electoral votes in 2016. Both sections of California would have been won by Hillary Clinton. I'm assuming this one was just a little bit less. So based off the coloring, it looks like it's either a 20 to 30 point margin or a 30 to 40 point margin. But regardless, that is a very safe state. I'm assuming it's 20 to 30, considering the upper part of California is 30 to 40. So 34 electoral votes, Hillary Clinton wins there, 23 in California. So this does increase the numbers in California from 55 to 57. So they do gain 2 electoral votes based off the split, but still voting the same way. So that's the territory of Colorado, even though Colorado's over there. Republic of Texas would, remove Texas completely. So it's no longer, the electoral votes would no longer be there. So I'm assuming that this is actually working around with the projected 2020 census, because I saw North Carolina with, I I saw North Carolina with 16 and Pennsylvania with 19. But let's go ahead and just take a look at this. So this would remove Texas completely. So this would actually be a blow to Republicans, but in the near future, Democrats. The Republic of Texas forming on its own would essentially be it'd be very difficult for the Republican Party to win elections without Texas, but considering we'd have to draw back the map, I'm assuming a lot of other Republican states would gain electoral votes, but so would some Democratic states. California would definitely gain back a lot. What have they lost? What they have lost to give to smaller states, and I think the Electoral College would adjust for it, but I still think that it would be a blow to the Republicans to lose a state such as large as Texas. So Superior, I'm assuming, yeah. That's what I thought. It would be the upper part of Michigan, essentially the part that we don't really talk about much, considering that is typically a Republican part of the state, but it doesn't have a large population, so there's no real need. Taking a look at its 3 electoral votes, Donald Trump would have won it by a 21-point margin. So this area would have voted for Hillary Clinton. I guess that made all the difference with those 11,000 votes. So Hillary Clinton would have won those 15 electoral votes from the overall Michigan, but then the Upper Peninsula would go to Donald Trump by a 21-point margin. Wow. So 383,000 people. That's roughly half the population of D.C. So the final state is West Sylvania. I can imagine which one this is. Yep, right in here. 8 electoral votes that combine Kentucky, Virginia, Maryland, Pennsylvania, and Tennessee in one big landmass. That is an ugly state. Sorry. The good thing about our country is I can't really point out too many states that I would classify as being drawn too horribly, but this definitely would be one of them. Could you imagine seeing that? That just doesn't look right. And I know we've gotten accustomed to what we see, but a lot of these states have straight lines, and this one doesn't really. So 8 electoral votes. Donald Trump would have won here by 24%. Hillary Clinton wouldn't win Pennsylvania in this scenario, though it is taking a part of the state that would actually account for both Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton votes probably equally. So Donald Trump does squeak out a win in regular Pennsylvania, wins Virginia with more electoral votes. Donald Trump still carries North Carolina and obviously Kentucky and Tennessee. But pretty much this would just be a very interesting state. So it was petitioned to join as a 14th state. I really am happy that it didn't, taking a look at it now. But it would have a population of around 4.5 million, so that's a pretty substantial amount. And again, Trump state, 8 electoral votes, but doesn't really mean anything considering that it's not really a state. So that's pretty much it in terms of covering all of these new states, comparing it to the 2016 presidential election. This was fun to do. Again, I don't want to cover anything too serious, considering that today's a national holiday. Go ahead and enjoy yourself, or if you're not celebrating, that's completely fine. Make sure you go ahead and stay safe during this time. I don't think it's too political to say that you should stay safe from literally a global pandemic, but I'm sure it has some political charging behind it, but it's also a safe thing to say. So again, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure you comment down suggestions below. Again, happy 4th of July. On your screen, you should see a video and then a playlist for the 2020 election nights if you just want to go ahead and watch those. Make sure you go ahead and check out the Instagram and Twitter. The ads are on your screen, and go ahead and consider subscribing on the left if you haven't already. Thank you all for watching this video again, and I will see you all tomorrow.